Righto, we're back here again. Yeah, I'm kind of getting down to the business end of things now. As you can see here, these are all blocked off. Now, I saved you the tedium of watching me do all that, but essentially all I'm doing is we're just sort of going around finding little pinholes, and I just use emulsion and a little paintbrush. If you've got any emulsion that sort of passes best by, it's really handy for this sort of thing. Just for you're filling any little pinholes. I'll put one up on the bench and we'll have a look though. But so just go around, just anything that's going to create issues with the final print. So that's all done. Sort of tape the edges. You won't be noticed, but when we burn the graphics, you get these lines down these edges, and that's caused by the edge of the glass. It's that thick on those edges that actually blocks out the light too, and it won't expose. So we just cover those up, just to, in case we get any ink spilling out over onto the board on those edges. It's just sort of eliminates those sort of problems. We'll pull this one up and have a look. Just looking at it, it didn't take a lot of, but you can have a look in here. And one thing I will say, when you're blocking, is to do it on the print side. You go and start putting little dots everywhere on your squeegee side. It sort of end up pulling over lumps. So you do it on the side, and then it's not going to affect your squeegee side, and it's nice and smooth then. So you can see we've just got to go around and put little dabs where there was anything. There was a problem. So I sort of hold it up to the light here is the best way, and then you can sort of see where any little pinholes are. Now, if you can see any now, just shut your mouth. Nah, should be cool. No, I think I've got most of them. So that's basically all that is we just go around and get any little areas that we think are going to be a problem. He wasn't too bad. None of them were really. I think the worst one was probably the halftone layer, because I spent a bit of extra time blowing the halftones out. But that's cool because it's all done now and that's tidy as hell. So yeah, those screens are fucking ready to go. Right, and I've got as you can see, I've got our colours all sorted out too. And that's the order we'll be laying them down. We'll go from the lightest to the darkest. So obviously we'll start with our white underbase. Saw that screen, that's our number one screen. And then I've got a sort of a, I don't know, tealy, greeny, bluey, sort of quite fairly pale sort of a green. It's pretty cool. And that'll, that's our number two screen obviously. And that'll be, get my little pointer here. And so that'll go in here. This reference here isn't an exact depiction of our colours. Yeah, this is sort of just so I can show you where the colours go. So our tealy greeny will be going here, and then the eyes here, and yeah, like that. And then we've got a bit of a magenta here. It's pretty cool. And he will go. You can put it. Well, it's pretty self-explanatory. In the face here, and the hair. Pretty sweet. And we've got a purple, sort of a medium purple, violet even. Pretty nice. And that's our halftone layer, of course, fourth screen. And he will go, you can see here, lips through here, it's all halftones through here. That's on top of white, so it'll be that purple straight on top of white. And this should be pretty cool. And then obviously we just finish off with our black layer. Nothing to see here really. But so that's our palette. I think that'll be pretty sweet. Okay, we'll just have a quick look over the press here, and we'll give you a bit of an idea of how that all works. But essentially, it's broken into two parts. We've got the deck jig itself, and the board will sit on here. The board just locates. The board will just locate on these pins here through the truck holes, and we've got a little bit of adjustment on this block here, depending on the wheelbase of the board. We can move this way. We can move up and down here, we can go back here, back and forward here, and that just helps locate the graphic on the, once we've got the screen here, it just helps us get everything registered and where it needs to be. So essentially that's it, but I'll put the board on there real quick, and you can see the board on there, like so. That's really all there is to that. So that's the deck jig, and then we've got the print head itself, and then this will just hold the screen in place. But I'll throw it in there and you'll see that in action. So that screen just sits in here, and we'll lock it in place with these lugs, just like that. And we've got the ability, we can lift this whole thing up while we're getting everything set up here. We can keep that out of the way and bring it down when it's time to print, and away you go. And it's essentially, we'll just put some ink on here, pull a squeegee across, voila. Now, to call that a gross oversimplification is a bit of an understatement, but look, That's really all there is to it if you can get it right. As we move forward, we start aligning the graphic in preparation to actually lay down some ink. Things will become a little bit clearer, but this is just a super basic rundown just to show you the press in action and how the two components work together. Okay, so then we better touch briefly on the squeegee itself, I guess. This is the tool where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. I mean, this is where it all happens. So in this case here, we're looking at a 70 durometer rubber blade, square end here. You can get rounded ends, and I think you can get a chisel end with a point. This is a square end blade, so you got a 70 duro, so it's medium hardness, so it gives you the ability to be able to get on these outer edges, and I will do a bit of a demo to show you how important this is, but we need a bit of flexibility on the edges here, and you can see to aid us further in that pursuit, you can see I've cut the ends off this handle here. So you're looking at a 300mm blade. I think the handle is about 220, something like that, and that just gives us the ability to get the fingers, these two here, right on the outer edges and push that down. But right, so we have a look out in front of you. You might get a better idea of the technique that we're trying to achieve with the radius that we're getting pulling through the concave. So really, all the action's taking place on these outer two fingers here, and really, so this is the grip that we've got, and so really just pushing down with these outer two fingers on either edge, just to really get that radius that we need to conform to the concave as we pull through the length of the deck. That's what we're trying to achieve, and you can see cutting the ends off this handle really sort of helps in that regard. So it just allows the ability to really get some movement in here, and also you can see, like I say, this is a 70 duro rubber. If we go for anything higher, say you had a 95 in here, which is rather stiff, you're really going to have problems. You end up breaking your fingers just even trying to move it. So this seems to work pretty well for me. Just to maintain that radius as we're pulling through the length of the deck, and maintaining an even surface contact right throughout. Because if you can't get that radius as you're pulling through, obviously your graphics going to drop out, and that's not ideal. Now, as if you're trying to focus all your energy and concentration onto maintaining a good surface contact with these outer edges with your fingers here, in addition to, you've also got to think about the angle that we pull through on here. The experts will tell you 45 degrees is your optimum angle, which is something along these lines here. So if you can imagine our squeegee laying at this angle here. So in addition to keeping the outer edges in contact with the board, well, then we also have to be concentrating on the angle that we pull through here. So essentially, we imagine the edge of the blade of the squeegee as a knife, and so as we drag the edge along the surface of the mesh, what we're doing essentially is cutting off the ink and leaving it behind on the board or whatever surface you may be printing on. So the more shallow the angle of the squeegee, well, the sharper the cut you're going to get, but the least ink deposit you're going to get. Whereas as you increase the steepness of your angle, well, then you're going to get a softer cut, but you're going to get a more ink deposit laying down on the surface. So it's really basically finding that happy medium. Now 45 degrees with a 70 duro blade seems to work pretty well. So just further expanding upon our squeegee and how we need to get down onto the surface of the board. Now, in particular with these old school boards, this is what I'd refer to as a dynamic concave, which means that, I mean, it's not like our modern popsicle boards, whereas you've got a full static concave running through the wheelbase here. Whereas these old school boards, it's got quite a spoon up around here, and this is probably the steepest part of your concave through here. And as we get into the back foot here, this actually flattens right off, right to the point where this is almost flat through the tail here. And if I just hold the squeegee down here, you sort of can get a better idea. You can see, as we pull back here, you can see that gap on the outer edges, and that's where we've got our fingies, and we've got to pull that squeegee down to get perfect surface contact with that board, because if you can't, then what happens is that your graphics going to drop out. And so as we move that back, you can see, hopefully you can see, as we come back towards the tail, you can see that gap slowly decreasing as the concave mellows out. So it gets a bit easier to print once you get back in here, because you're obviously not applying as much pressure to the outer edges. So we get to the back truck holes here, it's not exactly flat, but it's certainly getting there. So that's one thing to bear in mind, is how these concaves on these old school boards are, they are quite dynamic, and so you really have to adjust your fingers to account for that as you're pulling through the graphic. Now this is just sort of following on from a discussion I've had over the last couple of days. A squeegee handle with the concave actually moulded into it. It's kind of a brilliant idea. It means that you're not having to apply that sort of pressure to the outer edges because the arc is already in the blade. This is a full concave here, so this concave comes all the way through. It doesn't change whatsoever. This is just a full concave all the way through here. And so For a curved squeegee, that's perfect because it's a static concave that doesn't really change throughout here. So, and for these purposes, you know, for printing a modern concave, they're really a great idea, I think. But having said that, probably not so much for these sort of boards here, for the simple fact that you haven't got a static concave. This, as I mentioned earlier, this is changing all the way through here. So if you've got a squeegee with a built-in arc, well then it's going to become problematic trying to print on one of these boards here because you've got so much variation in the concave as you're moving through the board, which makes them kind of redundant for these purposes. Like I say, absolutely brilliant idea, I think, but it's horses for courses. And for something like this, probably not the best option.